First time I got that one. Who says one? Anybody say one? Usually at one point somebody said yes, one, and I was like, oh, God bless. And one or two things, either they're single or two, they're already married, and they're like, thank God. Who says two? Anybody two? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Romantic, I like it. All right, great. So that's where we start off. Now let's ask a question. Let's revisit those 3 personal questions. What is something you noticed about the way people responded to those questions? Don't be shy. Yeah.
With the third one, I feel like we're all a little bit more confident and have a lot more fun with answering that one.
For sure. So yeah, you had more fun with it.
Well,
and
yeah.
And we're more confident. This is a room of romantic lovers. Yes, from like 8 and above, basically. Good to know if you're single. Cool. So what else did we notice? It wasn't just the kissing question. What else did we notice about the hard working question, the smart question? Yeah.
I think we were also cognizant of what else was in the room.
Okay.
Like
what?
Compared to other folks, how hard are you working? Or
okay. So you're looking around the room and be like,
I see some,
these
yeah,
jokers.
folks
Like,
yeah.
how do I look smart, right? Or I don't want to say I'm too smart, right?
Yeah.
So what did you notice about the way people respond to those questions as a whole? Yeah.
It was more on the 7 and 8.
Aha, interesting, right? So it was more than 7 8s. Now you'll notice I was very careful and articulated that I wanted to know on average, compared to the average person, where did you fall? How many of you have taken statistics already and lived to tell the tale? Great. So if we know about normal distribution, and I said that 5 represents the average, and 1 represents well below average, and 10 represents well above average, where should most people have said they fell? An average, right? 5, right around 5, right? But where did this group fall? Above average, right? And that is not to say you are not a below average group, right? We are all above average here by nature of being here. However, I've done this in a group of, 40 people in here versus 1,000 people. I've done this in front of a group of 1,000, and guess what happens? The same thing. People think they're above average. It's just a fallacy that we have as human beings. It's a bias that we innately have. Now, to understand why we have that bias, let's think about the flip side of that. What would happen if you didn't think you were average or above average? By definition, you must think you are below average. Let me ask you a question. How do you feel? Say, for example, you get an exam back, you get a D, which is well below average, right? Just below average. How do you feel when you get that D? Yeah. How do you feel in general when someone comes up to you and says, hey, you're great. You know what? You're below average on any number of things. How do you feel? Not great. We don't like to feel below average. So we have this sort of built-in buffer system. We're like, oh, okay, like I'm above average and it's fine. Also, if you grew up in America, your parents have told you were above average since the day you were born. They're like, you came in the room, here's a trophy, right? Like that's the idea. So just keep in mind this idea that we can't very much evaluate where we fall on things because we have this weird bias kind of built in. Now, here's what's fun about that. That's an adaptive bias we know from evolutionary psychology. What is the name, what do we call a group of people who actually tend to think they're chronically below average? What do we call these people? There's a term for these people. Depressed. That's exactly right. You said it as a joke, but it's true. When you ask clinically depressed people to rate themselves, they are more likely to accurately rate themselves on these scales because they're not inflating themselves. Does that make sense? So it has negative consequences. So all that said, evaluating yourself to be above average can actually be a very adaptive thing. Because imagine waking up every morning and feeling that you're below average. That's what we call depressed, right? So keep that in mind as we talk today. So the talk I'm going to give to you is a talk called Selling the Best Possible You. How many people have taken marketing before? People in front? Yes, some people in the back. Wonderful. I'm going to rely on you in a couple of minutes to ask you general questions. You're like, no, don't do it, Jim. Don't do it. I'm going to ask you some basic questions about marketing, which I think even if you work as a team, you'll be able to figure out. So that's how we're going to do this. I'll show you a little agenda for today. We'll talk about the 4 P's of marketing. Ring a bell? Yes, I'm seeing some nods in the group. Fantastic. So we're going to review those, and then I'm going to give you a sense of 4 P's of marketing yourself. So what we're going to do is take our familiar 4 P's of marketing, sort of the basic foundation that if we think about these things, we get a gist for the marketing plan of the company. It's not every detail, but it's the foundation. And we're going to apply that to marketing yourself as an individual, because at the end of the day, believe it or not, you, friend, are a product. You sell yourself. Sounds like prostitution, not what I mean. Point of the story is that you are in fact in a market at all times, and we'll talk about how that translates into 2018, particularly in the digital era. At the very end, we'll talk about this best possible you action plan. I'm also a big believer, in addition to making things interactive, I don't like having my students leave without some sort of takeaway, so that's going to be your takeaway for today. All right, so let's start with the 4 P's of marketing. So my friends in the front row who have taken it before, and random smattering of people in the back who have taken it as well. Name 1 P of the 4 P's of marketing.
Place.
Placement, very good. That's one. There are three more. Price, that's another one. You guys are killing it. What is another one?
Product.
I heard it, product. Yep, and the last one, I heard it, I think? Promotion, very good. You guys nailed it. So, kudos to your marketing professors. Product, price, placement, and promotion. How many people have never heard of the 4 Ps before? It's okay, you can raise your hand. No, right? That's totally fine. So let's review them for those friends who haven't, and for those of you who maybe learned it, you're like, oh yeah, that was the 3rd or 4th thing. So we'll start with product. Product is typically what we think of when we think of marketing, right? We grew up in a world of goods and services. It's mind-blowing for some people. If you've taken intro to marketing, which apparently many of you have, there's that class where you're like, marketing's not just products, it's also services. And you're like, right? And suddenly, you realize I spit on you, and you're well. So you get an extra takeaway today. All right. So here's the thing: is that we don't just sell products; we also sell services, right? So something like an iced coffee would be a product, right? Something like taking a flight to and fro would be an experience or service. And the third thing is a pure experience, right? So how many of you remember Ed DePaul before they tore it down? Sad day, right? What did you do at Ed DePaul? What did they do for you? They insulted you and you paid them money for it, right? To eat mediocre food. Congratulations. The same thing is true at Build-A-Bear, right? How many people have been to Build-A-Bear before? What do you do at Build-A-Bear? Build-A-Bear. It's pretty straightforward, right? And you pay more money to build that bear than if the bear were made for you, right? So like, wow, but why are you paying that extra money? For the experience, right? You kiss the heart, you put it inside, you sew it up, give somebody you love, and they break up with you, right? So that's the idea of love is wrong. All right, so that's the idea of an experience. So that's typically what we think of. We have products, services, and experiences. That's what we pay for when we think of marketing, and it's the core thing of what we study. When we study consumers, that's why we study them as marketers, because we're trying to make that connection between people who produce and those who consume. Now, once we have those things, those goods and services and experiences, we have to charge money for them. Otherwise, we don't stay in business very long, right? So in order to do that, we talk about price. Now, there are entire classes on pricing. If that's your jam, mazel tov. Like, go do it, run toward it. Not my thing. I like math, but like, it's not as exciting. But if it is, go do it. There are entire classes for it. But today, I was going to go over 4 like basic strategies for you. There are others. Here are 4 basic ones. We'll start with premium pricing. When I say the word premium, what does that denote in your mind? Your mind? Expensive, right? And what? Luxury. Great. So, if I show you a Louis Vuitton handbag, do you think that's cheap or expensive? Yeah, we know it's expensive. How many of you own a real Louis Vuitton bag? Not one of these things that like fell off the truck or anything. Right. Some people. Okay, great. Was it cheap? No. No, great. But what does this denote? When we have a premium product, we know we're going to pay a premium price for it, a high price for it. Now, lest you think that we're just paying a high price for the luxury of the brand, if you know anything about the history of Louis Vuitton, which I would teach you if you came to Paris with me, you would know that they were first in the business of selling not purses, but luggage. Very good. And not only that, but the luggage was high quality luggage. So if you had a piece of Louis Vuitton luggage, or if family members do, that luggage should still be good probably to this day. And the same thing is true with an authentically made Louis Vuitton handbag. For many years, in order to like fit the technical definition of luxury, it had to be hand-stitched by artisans that are working in France from a single piece of leather, which is how you tell a real one from a fake one, because the fake ones come in multiple patches of leather that are sewn together. Now, because of demand, of course, they have extended their production outside of France. But the point of the story is this: if you're spending a premium amount of money on a product, you expect to have a premium experience or quality, right? Usually. All right, so beyond premium, there's also the economy. It's kind of the flip side of that. So premium is paying more for something. Economy must be paying cheaper. How many of you have flown Spirit Airlines and lived to tell the tale? Great. How much does a ticket on Spirit cost? Like, they let you on for free now, right? Right? What's that?
$30.
Yeah, it's super cheap. It's like $30. And then what do?
They charge you with like carry-on.
Yeah, they charge you for carry-on. They charge you if you're wearing shoes. They charge you like if you look at someone the wrong way. Like all these things they charge you for, right? So the idea here is that you pay very little in economy pricing, but what is the expectation for you as the consumer? Not much, right? And I remember who Spirit Airlines once from New York to LA. Imagine that flight. I didn't book it, but imagine like the seats normally on a plane are like uncomfortable. I feel like the seats on Spirit are kind of like this.
Yeah.
The whole time you're like, oh, like this is really comfortable. Great. So if premium is paying more per product, if economy is paying less and getting less in return, penetration pricing is a little different. How many of you have ever had to deal with telecom companies like AT&T? All that? Great. Especially when you're like new as like an undergrad or maybe in a graduate school, you move to a new city, they say, hey, have we got a deal for you, right? We're gonna give you internet, telephone, everything you need for this bundled price of like $9.99 a month. Hooray. And then like a year goes by, you're like living your life, everything's good, and what do they do like a year later?
I get it.
Yeah, they raise it, they call you back and they say, hey, surprise, we're going to make you pay $1 billion a month for this same thing. And you're like, oh my God. So then you call and you're like, hey, like, there's something wrong. And you're like, sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. Until you say what magic words?
Cancel.
I'm going to cancel. Like, oh, look at all these new options that I didn't see before. I'm like, I hate you so much, right? So that's the idea of penetration pricing. So penetration pricing works in a very saturated market. When you think about telecom, it's a very saturated market. It's expensive to get all these lines in, so they make these investments. So if you're a new entrant coming into that market, you need to have what we call penetrated pricing. You're trying to penetrate into the market. You come in at a very low price. In that way, once you start getting more users coming in, then you can bring your price up to market levels. Otherwise, you can't compete against your big dog competitors, right? So this is why when you see these sort of like smaller telecoms, or if you're from, I'm from rural Illinois, like way down south originally. So we go back to my parents, there's always some weird startups like Spark Internet that's charging you like $6 a month. The idea is by charging a cheaper rate than the other like big AT&T people, that's the only way people will switch. They build a market share, then they can raise their price over time, right? So you're literally penetrating into the market for the purpose of acquiring market share. That's the third strategy. The fourth one, how many of you remember the original iPod? That's an old sentence, right? Yeah, back in the days, like 2005, right? So when I was graduating from undergrad, and I remember thinking like, wow, like the future is here with the clicky wheel and the black and white screen. Now, of course, like this looks like a dinosaur in comparison because that's how technology moved. Now let me ask you a question. Was Apple the very first portable MP3 player in the market at the time? No, of course not. And it turns out that Apple's rarely the first mover in markets, right? It's usually Samsung, but then their stuff explodes and Apple comes in and like fixes it. Too soon for that joke. So here's the deal. This was not the first MP3 player in the market. The way it worked is that eventually, because they have their good branding and design, they can charge a higher premium price in the market, but as more entrants start coming in, like Zoom, remember Microsoft Zoom?
Oh, yeah.
That time, right? But what does Apple have to do to its price? Has to what? Has to lower it, right? As more entrants come into the market, that's simple supply and demand, right? Now, when they lower the price, they simply cut it in half. No, they skim off the top. So this is basically letting more market factors drive the price where it needs to go based on supply and demand, and then skimming off the top of that market based on what economics tells us the price should be. Make sense? Great. If you ever want to learn more about pricing, go take a pricing class. I'm not going to be teaching it, but it is interesting. Great, so that brings us to placement. This one's the trickiest one for people to understand when they're first going over the 4 Ps. So in this case, placement, the way I describe it, it's where you get the goods, services, and experiences that you tend to buy, right? Now most people in this room, probably everyone in this room, grew up in a time when, where did we buy most of our stuff? Amazon, pretty much, right? Now, some of us in this room, it's fine, are of an age where we remember like going to the mall was a thing, right? Like on the weekend, people used to socialize at the mall, right? Now it's like seriously dying. It's already dead. So the difference here is that yes, things happen more online, but you hear all this like sort of pop press stuff like retail is dying. The answer to that is actually it's not true. Retail is changing, right? So what if you know Amazon, you buy Amazon stuff, you buy things online. What do they have in Southport? An Amazon store, right? And what are they building more downtown? Amazon Go stores, right? So it's not necessarily that retail is dying, it's just changing. So the Amazon store in Southport, if you've been, it's lovely, go have fun. They have an ability, it's like a bookstore. What they find, and what I see when I've done myself, is you go and you're like, wow, this is an interesting book. I'm going to order it on my phone right now instead of buying right here because I don't feel like carrying it around and it'll be at my apartment tomorrow. Like, that's the world we live in. But, I know it's the epitome of laziness. But, what else can you do at the Amazon store that you can't do if you're buying something online? What's that? You can touch things, yeah, which we know consumers like to touch and see things. What else can you do? Preview it, right? You preview, what other stuff are they selling besides books? What's it? You're like, I don't know. They have coffee there to keep you staying there because marketing 101, keep people in the store that are more likely to buy something. What else? Alexa, Echo, anyone? Yes? Yeah, every day of my life, I'm like, Alexa, read the news, it's my morning. So they have things like that you can try out in-store because we realize consumers still want to have rich in-store experiences. So the difference is, yes, retail is sort of fading a little bit, but really retail is shifting to experiences, like experiential marketing. How many of you watch Chip and Joanna Gaines on HGTV, Fix It Up? Raise your hand, nice and proud, don't be shy, it's a great show. Wonderful. How many people have no idea what I'm talking about? Missing out, guys. Missing out. Husband and wife team in Texas. They do some good designs, right? Shiplap, shiplap, shiplap. Now, here's the deal. What company did they partner with recently? Target, yeah. Have you seen the in-store? All right, tell me about this in-store display at Target.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful. Tell me, why is it beautiful?
It's like a whole setup within the store. It's like a store in the store.
Yeah, so it's a store within a store. So if you don't know, Chip and Joanna Gaines, Fixer Upper, they don't pay me to say this, they're done with the show. They're in Waco, Texas, I believe. In downtown Waco, they have this silo, and so the marketing for this Magnolia Farms, is this silo. So what they do in each Target that they partnered with, well, they partnered with a company, but in each one they have an installation, they actually have basically a barn set up with all of their products that have this Magnolia Farms branding on it, right? This is very different than when Martha Stewart partnered with Kmart years ago, and it was basically like a pile of towels and a picture of Martha Stewart's face, right? Like, that was it, right? So it's creating the experience in store, right? Something separate, a little different, but related. Because we grew up in a generation, most of us, where we're used to just having things delivered to our doorstep, there's like the talk of drone delivery someday. What Target does to compete with that, they don't have the same logistical network